Welcome, Fright Night Vault listeners. Tonight's tale comes from a place that could be any small town you've ever driven through. Gas stations, motels, rusting pickup trucks, a place where the air smells like rain and gasoline. But once the sun goes down, the quiet here isn't peace, it's warning. If you haven't already, subscribe to the vault and never walk alone again. It began on the outskirts of Millhaven, a rural town that had long been fading away. Half the stores were boarded up, the diner stayed open out of habit, and the only traffic light blinked red through the night like a warning no one noticed anymore. The first whispers started at the lumber yard, a worker gone missing during a late shift. They said he left behind his radio still crackling, sawdust scattered as if he'd run straight through the sawroom door. By morning, his truck was found at the edge of the woods, door open, keys still inside. Locals brushed it off, a drunk, a runaway. Millhaven had seen worse, but the dogs started acting strange, howling at the fields, refusing to go near the tree line. The old preacher said the soil was cursed, but everyone laughed, pretending they didn't hear the fear in his voice. 2 nights later, the town woke to the sound of sirens. A fire had broken out behind the grocery store, and the volunteer crew arrived to find smoke. But not fire. It was something else, thick, gray, clinging to the air like ash. And in that smoke, someone was standing. The missing worker. He didn't move when they shouted, didn't blink when they got close. His skin was gray, as if the smoke had sunk into it, and his eyes, empty, like someone had blown out the flame inside. When he turned his head, slow and stiff, they saw the gash across his neck, deep, fatal, but he was still breathing. That was the first. By dawn, 3 more were found wandering the road that led into town. All of them pale, burned, or torn. All of them alive when they shouldn't be. The sheriff locked down Main Street, but no one could explain it. The coroner refused to touch them, saying quietly that their blood wasn't blood anymore. It was thick, dark, and cold. And then came the smell. By sunset, the air over Millhaven had changed. Heavy, sweet, like rotting fruit and iron. It sank into the houses, into the laundry hanging out to dry, into the skin of anyone who stayed too long outside. People stopped opening their windows. The streets went quiet. But from the woods, that low moaning began, faint at first, then closer, like the sound of breath dragging through mud. By the 3rd night, Millhaven no longer slept. People sat at their windows, lights off, watching the fog roll down from the hills like something alive. It wasn't ordinary fog. It moved in pulses, slow breaths that seemed to listen. Sheriff Danner tried to keep order. He drove through town in his cruiser, radio hissing with static, the voice of dispatch cutting in and out. Not words, just fragments of breathing. He didn't say it aloud, but everyone knew. The dead were moving again. At the diner, the last open place in town, the cook taped garbage bags over the windows. A handful of people gathered inside. The gas station owner, a high school teacher, a mother clutching her child. They whispered about the infected, but no one wanted to say the word zombie. Not yet. Outside, footsteps dragged along the street. The sound of shoes scraping asphalt, slow and steady. The lights flickered. Through a gap in the window, they saw them. 5 figures shuffling down Main Street, faces slack, skin split and gray. One was still wearing a work apron, another a police jacket. The mother gasped, recognizing one, her brother. They didn't run, not at first. It was the sound that made them freeze, a wet, clicking noise, like bones grinding together. Then one of the figures turned, eyes white and clouded, and started walking toward the diner door. Danner arrived moments later. The figures turned at the sound of the siren, not away, but toward it, like the noise drew them in. He tried the loudspeaker, his voice echoing across the empty street. Stay inside your homes. Lock every door. The first one reached his car. It pressed its hands against the hood, skin peeling where it touched the metal, and the sheriff realized it wasn't moaning. It was breathing, forcing air through lungs that shouldn't work anymore. He hit the gas. The cruiser lurched forward, but the figure didn't fall. It rolled onto the windshield, eyes inches from his, mouth opening wider than it should. Its jaw cracked as it bit down on the glass. The sheriff screamed. The others started to run. That night, the fog swallowed the edge of town. The power grid failed. The radio tower went dark. By midnight, Millhaven was cut off from the world. Those who survived the first attack fled to the high school gym. Concrete walls, emergency lights, a place that felt safe. But through the night, they heard tapping on the doors. Faint at first, then louder. Someone whispered, "They're learning." And in the flicker of the last light, they saw shapes moving outside, not shuffling anymore, standing upright, watching. The dead were remembering what it felt like to be human. By the next evening, Millhaven was silent, except for the hum of flies. The survivors inside the high school gym hadn't slept. They'd pushed desks against every door, lined the windows with bookshelves, anything to keep the things outside from seeing in. But the dead didn't need to see. They could hear. Every sound, every whisper, every footstep brought them closer. The gym echoed with the slow, deliberate tapping of hands against glass. Someone had tried to count them. They stopped at 50. The sheriff was gone. He'd gone out at dawn to check the patrol car that still idled in the lot, its headlights cutting through the fog. They'd heard him shouting, then gunfire, then nothing. When the sun rose, the cruiser's lights were still on, but the driver's seat was empty. By afternoon, the fog was thick enough to crawl through the vents. It carried the smell of dirt and old blood. People began to cough, wiping at their eyes. The teacher said they couldn't stay, that the infection was in the air now. Then they heard the music. The gym speakers, long dead, crackled to life, faint static, then a voice, humming something soft. It was the radio from the sheriff's car, still connected. The song was one the diner used to play before closing, and under the music, a whisper. "We remember." The mother held her child tighter. Someone screamed that the dead were inside. The east door burst open. The fog came with them. Gray hands twisting and reaching, faces pale, jaws slack, eyes weeping dark liquid. They didn't move like mindless husks anymore. They moved like people who knew exactly where they were going. The survivors fought back. Chairs, crowbars, anything that could break bone, but every blow seemed to wake them more. They began to speak, fragments of old lives slipping from torn mouths, names, prayers, laughter. One of them, the sheriff, stepped forward, his badge still pinned to his shirt, face torn but recognizable. He raised his weapon, but the barrel was gone, melted into his hand like it had grown there. He spoke through a voice, not his own. "You kept us here." The lights flickered and died. The fog turned black. The floor shook with the weight of dozens of feet. When the generator finally caught again, the gym was empty. Just scattered desks, a few drops of blood, and the open door swinging slowly. Outside, the road leading out of Millhaven was lined with figures, not wandering, standing in neat rows, faces turned toward the horizon. And somewhere in that endless fog, the radio played again. We remember. Days passed, though time no longer felt real in Millhaven. The sky never cleared, just a dull gray wash that bled into the fog below. From the highway, travelers swore the town still looked normal. Streetlights faintly glowing, storefronts neat, no sign of ruin. But when they pulled closer, their radios went dead, and a low hum filled the car, like 100 voices breathing in unison. Inside the high school, something had changed. The walls were coated with handprints, black, oily marks pressed from the inside. The blood had dried, but the prints were fresh, always fresh, as if someone touched them every night. The mother and her child were found by a search team weeks later, sitting by the bleachers, eyes open, unmoving. The rescuers thought they were alive until one of them whispered, "You came back," and smiled. After that, the team stopped going in. The government sealed the perimeter. They said it was contamination, an airborne sickness. They bulldozed the bridge, cut every road. But those who lived nearby still heard things when the wind came down from the valley. Soft moans, faint singing, and sometimes the low rumble of engines starting, though there hadn't been fuel in Millhaven for months. They say if you drive past the old sign at night, you can see the fog rolling across the field, thick and pulsing like breath. And if you stop long enough, you'll see figures standing by the road, still and patient, their eyes like dull lanterns in the mist. Some look newly dead. Others have been waiting much longer. And if you listen close, just before the static takes the radio again, you'll hear it. We remember. The dead of Millhaven never forgot the living who left them behind. They still hunger. They still wait. And when the fog spreads again, they will come walking. So if you ever find yourself driving late and the fog thickens faster than it should, turn back. Because some towns aren't abandoned. They're occupied. Listen in the dark. Keep your lights low. Don't breathe when the fog moves. Subscribe to the Vault and never walk alone again. If you have a story of your own, please feel free to add it in the comments. You never know. The next story could be yours. See you on the next video.